everyone, and welcome to Advocate Today. I'm LaPortia. Okay, so today we're diving into two big headlines: a settlement on the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and a new poll that found restrictions on trans and abortion rights and how they're losing issues, even with swing voters. I'm joined by Kayla Gagne, Executive Director of Digital Content, and Alex Cooper, Editor of The Advocate. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Good to be here.
All right, let's start with the Don't Say Gay settlement. Alex, what can you tell us about this development?
Yeah, so it was a huge victory for LGBTQ plus rights activists who have been lobbying against the legislation since it was signed in 2022. It's pretty significant. You have this bill, the first of its kind in the U.S., this law that restricts discussion of gender identity and sexual orientation in schools, originally up until like third grade, and then with an expansion up until 12th grade, and in any public institution, really. So now, what happened with this settlement is that they've clarified what the law actually means and what it actually restricts, which is not a lot. So through the settlement, things like gay-straight alliances can be organized, safe space stickers can be used, teachers can talk about their partners, programs against bullying can still go on. And this came after this fear of this law restricting all of that. So it was the vague definition of the law that caused educators in Florida, school officials, to literally be scared to do anything, because part of the law is this ability for parents to sue if there is a violation. So a lot of educators were concerned that they were going to be sued if they talked about their same-sex partner, if they tried to do a safe space at their school, if they, discussed anything about gender identity or sexual orientation at all. This settlement specifies that such discussions cannot be part of an official curriculum or an official instruction.
Interesting. Okay. All right. This is why we need journalists. This settlement is another victory for civil rights attorney Roberta Kaplan. What can you tell me a little bit about Roberta?
She's a champ. She is amazing. She's been on the forefront of many civil rights cases when it comes to LGBTQ plus people and others. In the last over a decade now. She represented Edie Windsor going against the Defense of Marriage Act. And she also represented E. Jean Carroll recently against Trump, winning her tens of millions of dollars.
Okay, now that's interesting. So this seems like a big win for LGBTQIA plus rights. What effect do you think this will have on similar laws in other states, Alex?
I think this is going to have a ripple effect of what these laws actually can do, and what restrictions are placed. I think there's still a problem when there is such a law in place. There's still a restriction on discussing queer experiences, lives in official instruction. But this settlement shows that the law isn't as expensive as many feared it would be, or feared that it could be. And I think this will...
Oh, now, Kayla, I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on this law? What effects do you think it will have?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we can hope for here is that this is also a discouragement to the groups and the people that are pushing these kinds of laws, because they see that these kinds of challenges can have an impact. And we know that as LGBTQ rights have been under assault for the past couple of years, and at the state level, Florida certainly leading the way in this effort. To see Florida then get such a strong pushback and such a strong rebuke, really clarifying this, the hope that we would then see that ripple through some of these other state legislatures that have really used a lot of Florida's legislation as a model in their states.
I really love how you broke that down, Kayla. Now, you covered this week a new poll commissioned by GLAAD, the LGBTQIA plus advocacy group, found that restrictions on trans rights and abortion rights are losing issues even among swing voters. So I'm curious, Kayla, what specifically did this survey find about the voters' view on anti-trans legislation?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we have a story about this on The Advocate this week from reporter Trudy Ring. And what it found is that queer voters are, first of all, they're highly motivated to head to the polls. So, broadly speaking, GLAAD, LGBTQ advocacy group, is looking at, what is the state of voting for queer people heading into the November election? And they found that 83% said they are definitely voting in November. And they also found that a full 60% of LGBTQ voters nationwide favor Biden over Trump, with an even greater number favoring him in swing states. But, queer voters, just like voters in general, want to see politicians address other issues like the economy, abortion rights, climate change, these other topics. And I think that is really reflected in their view about, politicians who push anti-trans legislation. GLAAD found that, a majority of all voters, not just LGBTQ voters, oppose candidates who frequently speak about these issues of restricting the rights of trans kids to access healthcare or participate in youth sports. And 81% of them, which is such a huge majority, say that healthcare decisions for trans kids should be made by parents.
Yeah, for sure. If these policies are so unpopular, why do politicians continue to pursue them in so many states across the country?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think what we've found is that in a lot of ways, this battle is similar to the abortion rights battle, in that these anti-trans advocates are really following a playbook that's similar to the anti-abortion playbook. They're well-funded conservative Christian groups, including the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Research Council, that are behind this effort nationwide. And often when you hear about a bill at the state level to restrict gender-affirming care, it originated with one of those conservative think tanks. They draft the legislation, and then they fund and help fight to get it passed. They'll bring in the same handful of witnesses to testify in favor of these bills all over the country.
Now, this is a question that everyone is asking. We have just a few seconds left, Kayla. How does this political climate affect LGBTQIA plus people especially?
Well, what GLAAD's poll found in this case is that this current political environment is really hurting queer people's mental health. A majority of them reported negative effects on their mental health, and a majority also reported that they're fearing for their families and their own safety. And almost half of them report online harassment or bullying, both in the real world and online, because of politics. So there's real impact here. Even when these laws don't pass, there's impact on queer people's mental health.
It's so interesting, you guys, because we pride ourselves on being the leaders of the free world and a very progressive country, and yet year by year we're going backwards. So, Alex, I'm asking you, how does this political climate? I know you do a lot of work with politics in general over at the Advocate. How do you believe this political climate is affecting LGBTQIA people?
Yeah, I mean, just like what Kayla said, it's harmful. And even today, the Washington Post came out with an analysis of FBI data that showed that hate crimes against LGBTQ plus students in schools have quadrupled over the years.
I feel like,
But those are in states that specifically have anti-LGBTQ plus laws too. So these are states where they're going after trans kids' healthcare, and doing passing those types of legislation.
yeah, it's just so sad, So we're going to continue to hope that everyone shows up to the polls and do what needs to be done this election season. Listen, Kayla, yes. Alex, thank you so much for joining me on Advocate today.
Thank you.